So, our first guest is a former co-host of Tuesday Funk and a graduate of the New School MFA in Creative Writing program. Her writing has appeared in Black Market Lit, Best of Ohio Short Stories, Arch City Chronicle, and Parent to Parent. Born in Ohio, she was raised by a mother who wrote checks to herself, served her children a shot of brandy on New Year's Eve to ward off evil spirits in the new year, and believed 2 of her daughters were psychic. She followed her mother into seances, new moon circles, and out-of-body experiences. Magic and sometimes her mother are a part of almost all of her stories. She lives in Chicago's Uptown neighborhood with her husband Andrew Witt, bassist for the hard rock doom pop fish metal band Sea Lords, and their 3-year-old son and a cat named Perseus. Please welcome back to Tuesday Funk, Sara Ross Witt. You may, yes.
Thank you.
Get out of the way just for space.
Thanks.
Good height?
I think so.
Okay.
Does this sound good? Do I sound good, everyone?
Yes.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. Andrew and Eden, thank you for having me. So tonight I'm not going to be reading about my mother or our psychic journey together. Instead, I'm going to be reading a story that is inspired by storytelling with my grandmother. In September 1944, my grandmother, Betty Flesher, crossed the state line between West Virginia and Ohio to marry my grandfather, Noah. They followed the war work to Akron, Ohio. You should know that to me, Akron was nothing but a gas station where my mother would drop me off and Granny would pick me up. But to a 17-year-old newlywed Betty, Akron was freedom and new opportunity. According to her, it was alive all of the time with war production and the entertainment that surrounds nonstop work. It was, as Max Lerner noted in the 1943 issue of PM magazine, a group of girls coming out of war factory behaves much like a gang of young fellows. Betty danced through the early morning hours, went to work at the factory at 6 a.m., and in the afternoon she would sneak with a few girlfriends behind stores to steal cigarettes or sugar. A few years after the war, after several moves back and forth between West Virginia and Ohio, Betty and Noah and their 2 young daughters lived in an apartment next door to a Polish war refugee. This woman taught my Granny some recipes in exchange for assistance with her English. As a teenager, Granny told me a story about this woman's life, about how she hid her son to escape death, a story that has embedded itself within me. This is my version of her story. How you were born. When you were 4 months old, your daddy asked why I was teaching you to drink from a straw if you were still suckling. I'd fashioned the straw out of the thick weed I found growing between the cracks in the cement. The straw was for the bird's eggs I was having you drink from, to supplement my milk. I could count your daddy's ribs. He could poke me and almost touch my spine. Our food ration wasn't enough to keep you alive, so I snuck to the roof of our building and pillaged Pigeon's Nest. You were born inside the walls. You never knew a life without them, and you adapted well. You didn't cry like the other children who shared our room. You seemed to know that there was very little left for you in the world, and you made do with what you had. Your daddy and I fit you in between us at night, on a cot built for one person, into a space where a tiny baby should not go. Yet you fit perfectly. You were meant for that little space. Even Daddy said he was not uncomfortable with you there. He was so proud of his little miracle, our Joshua. When it rained, I walked outside holding your naked body against mine to give you a clean bath. The water inside our building was not clean. It was not safe. When the rations included butter, I saved my serving and used it as lotion on you. How happily you cooed when I massaged it into your skin. When you were 2 years old, you became very sick. Daddy thought you died. He begged me to give you to the orphanage. It was run by a doctor who was well loved on the outside of the walls as well as on the inside. Daddy said he'd take care of you, and when the walls come down, we can take you back. I knew the orphan doctor had a bit more food for the children and more medicine than the doctor in our building, but I couldn't give you up, not even to keep you alive. Instead, I went to the man at the gate in his dark uniform with his dark eyes. Before the walls, I knew him as Gabriel, a friend of a friend who had always been pleasant and spoke kindly to me. He attended my wedding to your daddy, because back then everyone who lived on your street came out for the wedding. He had kissed my cheek as a brother and had kissed Daddy's cheek as a friend, telling him he was so lucky to marry the prettiest girl on the street. When Daddy and I were forced behind the walls, forced to leave almost everything behind, Gabriel was in the dark uniform. He believed the dark things, and he thought evil lurked inside of us. He stopped us before we walked into the gates. "Let Allison come with me," he said to your daddy. "She is too beautiful. I can hide her. I can make it so no one knows about her past." Your daddy knew the decision to stay or go was mine. He knew I'd stay with him forever. We had loved each other first as school friends, and now as husband and wife. I was not scared of the walls. "No," Daddy replied. "Allison would not go." "I will not leave Noah," I said. And we walked into the gate, where Gabriel watched us for many years. So, when you were dying, I walked to the gate, and Gabriel was there. "Come with me," he begged. His dark eyes were still dark, but had a light in them now. Of hope, I thought. I didn't want to kill his hope. I needed that to keep you alive. His hope sickened me. How could he choose one to live while the rest were caged to die? I told him I needed medicine for you. Of course he knew you. A stunning boy inside the walls, with your curly hair and blue eyes. You look nothing like your daddy and me. You look like their kind of child. Gabriel went right away for the medicine and handed it to me through the gate. When I reached for it, he gripped my hand. "A favor for a favor," he said. So I told your daddy I had allowed Gabriel to kiss my hand, which seemed to calm your daddy, because he did not like the way Gabriel leered at me. The medicine saved you. What difference did it make what Gabriel did to me? And you were not sent to the orphanage, which was liquidated shortly after your illness anyway. The men in the dark uniforms came in and made the orphans march out, each one holding a little token, like a stuffed teddy or a blankie, for the journey and the doctors and the nurses too. They walked out holding the hands of the children, their heads high, and I could hear the doctor telling the children they were going to a special place outside the walls where they could play in grass and sunshine, drink clean water, and eat all of the time. I ran inside our building with you, and I held you as I cried because I knew it was a lie. I cried harder because I wanted it to be true. The doctor and the nurses and the children were never seen or heard from again. That's why I taught you our game. When I said, "It's time to be a flower," you hid under the floor, under the bed, and you used the straw for air, and you couldn't come out until Daddy or I found you. We played that game at least once a day. When they inspect the building, it's time to be a flower. When they pull other families out of the walls, it's time to be a flower. When they talk over the air and tell us to line up outside, it's time to be a flower. And now, my son, you are almost 5 years old, and they moved all of us out of the walled city, your daddy and me too. And I could not leave you behind under the bed, under the floor, though I should have. And they are marching us far, far away from our home. People are falling down dead around us. We walk over them, and we recognize their faces, but I do not say their names because I do not want to remember their names. I do not want to remember what we were forced to become. Inside the walls, we were less than human. We resembled the evil Gabriel believed was inside of us. Joshua, you have never walked this far. Your daddy and I take turns holding you. I am holding you when the uniformed men shout to stop walking, and they start pulling the children away from the others. Mothers or fathers pulled with them. I am pulled with you. Your daddy is left behind. I love him so much, and I know I will not see him again, but I don't cry. I don't want to scare you. They tell us to walk into a field with corn so high we can no longer see the line of people we've left behind, which is good because I don't want to see your daddy crying either. They bring us to a spot where the corn has been cleared, where they can see all of us. I set you down and keep my hand over your mouth. I wait for the uniformed men to look away. They are trying to decide how to kill us without wasting ammunition. They've grabbed a young child who they are now striking repeatedly with the butt of their gun, but this is slow, so they are conferring and not looking. I crouch down. You are frightened. It's time to be a flower, I say. Clawing at the dirt, I create a little space for you, and the corn I fashion into a straw. And with the corn I fashion a straw. No, Mommy, you say. No, Mommy, I do not like that game. It's not a game, Joshua. I put you into the hole and I begin covering you with dirt. Breathe only through the straw, like we've always played, and don't come out until I come back for you. You grab my hands as I push dirt into your torso. Tell me about the doggies. When I was a little girl, I had 2 doggies, Mindy and Molly, a black and a white dog. They buried their bones in my hair. Then they got old and went away. Are you going away? Am I, you ask? No, Joshua, not yet. I'll come back for you. Now be my little flower. Close your eyes, and I bury you. I put my shoes on top of where I buried you. I stand up. The uniformed men have decided to burn us. They're herding us closer together and dousing us with gasoline. I see Gabriel. He looks shrunken and sick, but he's throwing liquid on the crying children anyway. I walk toward him and tap his shoulder. He jerks at my touch. Please, sir, I do not have a child. Please, I can be useful. He recognizes me. He puts down the gasoline. Turning to another man in black, Gabriel explains that I should go back to the others as I have no children, and he will take me there. He grabs my arm at the elbow and walks me away. Where is Joshua, he asks. He died on the walk, I say. I'm so sorry, he says. Like we're talking about this over coffee. Like he wasn't just about to burn us. Then he stops walking, but he doesn't let me go. He just stares at me, and there's no more light in his dark eyes. There's nothing. We are in the tallest part of the corn now. No one can see us. I have been counting my steps away from you. I am too weak to fight Gabriel if he comes at me, but if I could get his gun, I would shoot out his eyes. That night you came to me. That was the last night I was happy, he says. He looks down at his boots as if there's something on them that bothers him. He lets go of me. I trust you to walk the rest of the way, back to the others. Then he walks away, not back toward the burning parents and children, not toward the roof where the others are, the road where the others are waiting. He disappears into the corn. I stand for a moment. I hear the sound of the fire, cries of despair and agony, shouts and screams, gunshots for those who try to escape, the roar of hell so close to us. Joshua's not there, I tell myself. You are under the ground. You are a flower. I'm shaking. In my head, I'm saying the number of steps I've walked away from you over and over. Finally, I walk left 15 steps, and then I retrace my step back toward the burning. I worry that the fire will reach you. I worry the smoke will clog your straw and keep you from breathing. I worry the shouts and cries of the burning dying will scare you. I worry the stench from the burning flesh will make you throw up. I throw up. I crawl back to where I buried you, which is not in the circle of fire, thank God, and I find my shoes. I dig for you. You are not there. I dig a few feet over. You are not there. I dig behind that. I dig in front of that. I dig and I dig and I dig to the screams of the burning, and I cannot find you. The air is thick with smoke. I cough. I worry my cough can be heard. I cover my mouth, but no one comes. I cry into my hands as I wait for someone to shoot me, but no one comes. The screams and the fire are too loud for me, for my cough. I lie on the ground, in places I haven't dug, and say, Joshua, it's time to be a person now. Stop being a flower. I speak into the ground over and over. Stop being a flower. Stop being a flower. How long was I away from you? How did the shoes move? Have I been to this spot before? I am so far away from the shoes, from the circle of burning, that I know you are not here, but I still talk to the ground, to the roots of the corn. Come out, my darling. Be my little boy. The ground moves. I crawl closer to it. It moves again. This is the trick of my tears. Again, it moves. I begin to dig. I dig and dig until I find you, covered in dirt, holding the straw in your mouth. This is the story of how you were born, Joshua. You were not born from mommy or daddy or birds' eggs or walls. You were born from flour and from dirt.